Hey everybody, welcome back to the garage. If this is your first time visiting my channel, please go ahead and click on subscribe, and also click on the bell to receive all the updates and activity on this channel. Alright, so today we got the my two-place trailer over here, pulled it out of the weeds. It's been stored over at my brother's for the longest time, just because it's really haven't had a use for it. And but now that we've purchased that adventure, and my wife and daughter will be gone, we're gonna be putting the two-place trailer back into service, and I figure I would go through it and everything else. So this is a very important conversation we need to talk about. We've all seen trailers on the side of the road with lying on the ground with no axles on it, and the reason why is because it's all because of deferred maintenance. When people buy an aluminum trailer, they say, "Oh, I don't need to do any maintenance on it. It's all set to go. It's aluminum. It's not going to rust." So on and so forth. Because if you look at on this trailer, it looks pretty good based on first impressions. The decking may be a little bit dirty, but for the most part, it looks pretty solid. But what everybody fails to do is people will grease their bearings and everything else, but nobody really ever chooses to go underneath the trailer and look at the status of the axle. And basically that's what the issue is with this trailer, and we're going to go take a look at it right now and go from there. Because essentially what will happen is when people don't look at the axle, what will happen is it will rust out and electrolysis will occur, and then it will weaken the frame of the aluminum trailer, and what will happen is eventually it'll get so weak the axle gets ripped out of the bottom of the trailer, and then the trailer is on the ground on the side of the road. So why don't we go ahead and crawl underneath the trailer and see what we're looking at. Alright, so we've crawled underneath the trailer, and basically this is the anatomy of the axle that we're looking at. So essentially what you got here is you have your torsion axle, and essentially this is a tube that is filled with 4 rubber isolators, and then which run lengthwise through the tube to the other side, and then inside that there are 4 steel rods. And what happens is when there's tension on it, basically the rods bind up against the rubber insulators, which creates the spring tension. All right, so this is why you want to look at your axles. If you're just to look at the trailer based on the surface, and say, hey, everything looks good. But like we were talking about before, when axles get ripped out, this is what happens, right? So what we got here is we have 2 dissimilar metals. You have an aluminum frame, and then you have you have the steel axle, and up here you have the isolator, which prevents electrolysis. This is rubber, right? So what I've been doing is I've been poking around, and right now this feels pretty solid. But looking at the axle, I'll just go to show you how bad this really is. We're just going to poke at it. Right, it's just coming off in sheets. Right, on the main mount, inside it. Right, this thing is literally falling apart. Even on the drop spindle, this axle is no good, right? So again, this is why you want to check your axle and your trailer before you head out, because this is what will lead to a ruined weekend and leaving you stranded on the side of the highway. So, right, just goes to show you, right? Pretty bad. Alright, so why don't we get out from underneath the trailer, and we'll talk about the long-term plan on this bad boy. Alright, so we're in the garage. The trailer's in the garage. Both the sleds are on the trailer. Even though right now the trailer isn't roadworthy, I still got to utilize it for storage. I brought it over here, and I really can't leave it out in the driveway, and so on and so forth, just because it kind of screws up the parking process and everything else. So the sleds are on the trailer for the foreseeable future. So the just to give you a little back history on the trailer. The trailer was purchased in 2001. My brother and I bought it, and so it's roughly 16 years old. It's the original axle in there, and for the most part, the trailer has held up very well. So no complaints. But you know, like I was talking before, this is one of those things that will go unchecked by the vast majority of people out there. Because again, you know, people just think because, oh, I have an aluminum trailer, it's zero maintenance, and like you saw, that's not necessarily true. And it's one of those things that's so easy to check in while you're at home, and you know, versus dealing with a catastrophe on the road. Because I can't speak for anybody else, but I know my buddies and I have seen at least, never fails, at least 1 or 2 broken trailers on the side of the road every year we go up. So it's a common issue, and if you go on the forums and everything else, people say, yeah, I never knew what was going on, and then, you know, before I knew it, the axle was bouncing down the road, and the trailer was being dragged on the ground. So it's one of those easy things to check, because you know, the cost of the axle is probably around $300 versus the cost of towing, and then the loss of a weekend and everything else. The cost of the axle is a lot cheaper than what else, you know, could possibly happen. So if you're in a situation like this, don't hesitate, do it. You know, it really is short money on the long run based on everything else that could happen. It's kind of ironic that we're talking about this, because yesterday I was actually over at my buddy's house. He has a 12-foot clamshell, and we pulled the axle out of that trailer, not because it was rotted, but because it was bent. And really, the removal process is pretty straightforward. All it is, there's 2 bolts that go in from the axle up into the rail, and it's just held on there by nuts and washers. You just cut them off, the axle drops right out, and then it's done. I think we had the axle out probably within 20 minutes, and the whole job was done in about an hour. So it's really straightforward. Don't be intimidated about it. You know, once we get the axle, I'll be posting a video on that and walk you through the process on it. So it's not that bad of a job to do. So essentially, that's it for now. We're going to order the axle. I imagine it's probably going to be about a week to 2 weeks out. So look for that on my feed. If there's any questions, thoughts, concerns, go ahead and leave them in the comments box. I'd love to get the feedback from you guys. And as always, thanks for watching, and have a great day, and pray for snow.